Hello, my name is Kent Berryman. I am a nonprofit specialist with Gateway Community Action. Gateway Community Action is a social services organization that serves 5 counties in eastern Kentucky. Those 5 counties are Bath, Menifee, Montgomery, Morgan, and Rowan Counties. Today's video we are going to talk about how to enhance your chances when applying for a grant. Now, we are going to have some workshops where you're going to be in attendance about grant writing and those type things. But this is just a little extra technical assistance to show you how you can enhance the probabilities of receiving a grant. Thanks. Alright, one of the first things that you can do to enhance your chances when you're applying for a grant is to always follow the grant instructions to the letter. People who are looking to give out money are just like everyone else. They are limited on the amount of time they have to spend. So they have grant instructions, and that is one of the ways that they cull or they disqualify potential applicants is by not following the instructions. So if the grant instructions tell you to send 2 letters of reference, then only send 2 letters of reference. Do not send 3, because if you send 3 and they only ask for 2, they can certainly disqualify you for not following the instructions. Okay, the next thing you can do to enhance your chances for receiving a grant is to always use paper clips to hold your application together. Now you may be saying to yourself, now Kent, that's a little harsh, but if you're using think about it like this. If you have several pieces of a grant application and you staple them together, a lot of times there's just someone going through and making copies for the committee to view. So if your grant is stapled together, there's a possibility that it will, there's not a possibility, it will jam their copier as they're making copies, which could mean that it will tear some of the pages of your grant application. And if someone is in a hurry and trying to do several jobs at once and they've got some torn pages, they may just toss your grant out. I know it doesn't seem fair, but always use paper clips to hold your application together. Alright, the next thing you need to do is you need to make sure your email addresses are in black, not blue. If you use a Word program like WordPerfect or Microsoft Word or whatever, normally when you put an email address, it will strike that email address in blue and underline it. The problem becomes is blue does not copy well in black and white. So again, if the person who is making copies of the applications is doing it for the committee and your email address, your contact information, if it's in blue, there's a good possibility that it won't come through on the finished copy. And if you don't have an email address, they can't contact you if they need additional information. So always remember to make sure your email addresses are in black, not blue. Alright, the next thing you need to do is you need to make sure you have all the required signatures. Signatures are important because that gives the person or the organization giving out the grant the permission to check your information. So if you don't have the required signatures, the organization cannot check your information. Therefore, your grant application becomes invalid. I ran into this specifically when I was doing the CCF grant. As I was pulling the grants together, there were some who submitted grants, but they did not sign the signature page. This is vital. Always make sure you look and have signed all the required documentation. Alright, the next thing you need to do to enhance your chances for receiving a grant, answer the questions in the application, but don't write a book. People who offer up grants or funding have specific questions and they just want an answer. You don't have to wax fantastic about all the different things of your organization to try to hit a chord with these people. If you are applying for a grant and there's a specific question, just answer the question. Answer it to the best of your ability, but do not just keep going on and on and on to try to find a hot button, because chances are the person reading it will just get tired and they may even toss your application. One of the next things you can do to enhance your chances of receiving a grant is to make sure you always try to make your page layout portrait. Now, the reason this is important is because if I am the person getting all the applications together and I have 100 or so to get together, and you have included other documentation to make your point on your application, if that documentation is laid out in landscape and some of it's laid out in portrait, I'm probably just going to throw it in the copier and copy it. So if some of it gets cut off and I've got 100 grant applications, I'm probably not going to sit there and watch. And so consequently, some of the valuable information you've included in your grant application will be missing valuable information that made your point. I know it's not always possible, but whenever you get a chance, try to make sure that you lay out your application and all your inclusive documentation in portrait. Now, the next thing you can do to enhance your chances when you apply for a grant is to make sure all your documentation is on 8.5 by 11 inch paper. When I was doing the CCF grants, when the grants came in, I had some inclusive information that was included in the grants, the documentation, that was laid out on legal paper. Hence, making copies of it became a nightmare. Now, I know this seems like I'm being petty, or I know it seems like I'm being just nitpicking, but the point is, if you have a lot of grant applications and someone has got to make copies of them, they're not going to have the time to make sure all your information gets there. So don't shoot yourself in the foot by putting some documentation that's on legal size paper and some that's on normal 8.5 by 11 inch paper. Try to make sure all your documentation is on 8.5 by 11 inch paper. That way the person can put it in the copy machine, make their copies, and move on. Now, the final thing that you can do to enhance your chances to receive a grant is to make sure if you're writing your letters of reference, and most grant applications ask for letters of reference, make sure you change them up slightly. Now, we all know that the people that give us the best references are usually too busy to write them. So if you're applying for a grant, a lot of times you'll end up writing the letter of reference and then send it to the person to approve and sign. So make sure if you're the one writing the letters of reference, change them up. Don't just send a blanket reference letter and have all your references sign them. It looks bad. If you are the one writing the letters of reference, change them up. Make them different.